Hello Blue Moon fans. Today I'm going to talk about the fabric names I use, the different types of fabric, and what I mean when I say things like chenille, velvet, damask, that kind of thing. I'm going to talk a little bit about terminology so that you know what to expect when you are ordering something online and you see these fabric names and you're like, well, what's it going to feel like? So one of my favorite kinds of fabrics to use is what I call chenille. And typically what this is, when you look at it, when you actually look at the structure of the fabric, the threads, one of the weave directions has these threads that are fuzzy, like a caterpillar's body. And that means that the fuzzy fibers are actually twisted in crosswise to the twist of the yarn. And so individual threads are going to have that fuzzy texture. I really like this because the texture is much more durable, I've found, because it's actually kind of woven into the structure of the cloth. I really, really enjoy using it, and who doesn't love, just rubbing up on something this soft? This one's really soft. So that's what I mean when I say chenille, is that the fibers are actually in the threads that the cloth is woven from. This is different from velvet, because velvet is a fabric that is, it's actually kind of in two parts. There's a backing cloth, so in silk velvet, it's made from silk, that kind of thing. And then what they do when they're actually weaving the cloth is they tuck in these U-shaped fibers that makes the pile of the fabric. So that is the pile of the velvet. And it's a little bit more in structure. It's more like terry cloth or maybe fake fur that has that kind of standing up fiber that's not necessarily intrinsic to the structure of the cloth. So when you pick away the threads, you can see that there's these little fuzzies that are just coming off because this is a velvet cloth, not a chenille cloth. This particular example happens to have a backing. There's a lot of upholstery fabrics that come with either a layer of interfacing adhered on, or this was probably put on as like a liquid in the factory that made this fabric. That kind of backing will often add to the durability, and it just makes it something that's going to last a lot longer. I use velvets maybe a little more sparingly. I do love the texture, but over time I've discovered that the pile tends to wear away more quickly and it looks a little bald. Nobody likes to go bald. So velvets, especially like velveteens, cotton-based velvets have this problem. So I try to avoid them, but sometimes I get really good colors, or if it's a nice thick upholstery weight example, I'll maybe use it. So that's velvet. Now I'm going to talk about these two together. So these are examples of fabrics that have a pattern woven into them. I typically will use the name tapestry to describe fabric that has multiple colors and different kinds of thread textures woven into it. So, but the name jacquard is also used to describe this method. I often will use the name damask to describe fabrics that have a pattern woven into them, but they are all the same color or the same tone. So you can see on this one, it has a chenille and then a flat area that creates this leaf pattern. I'll typically call that a damask. I love to use these kinds of fabrics because the pattern, instead of being printed on with inks or paints or something, it's actually woven into the structure of the cloth. So I really enjoy them. This example is a chenille tapestry because you can see again there's those fuzzy fibers woven in, but then there's different kinds of yarns used. So there's a thinner yarn that provides the flatter area, and then there's that thick chenille that sticks out and looks great. So yeah, these are tapestry damask family. I also love to use ultra suede, which is an imitation, polyester based imitation suede, or I've heard it called vegan leather, although there's vinyls and other kinds of fabrics that also use that name. I really like ultra suede because it's a very tight weave. It's very densely packed. There's a lot of threads per inch, but it still has that soft feeling of suede, even though it's not actually suede. I don't have the right machines to sew real suede and real leather, so I prefer to avoid it when I can. I have done it on occasion, but it's not my favorite, because it's also skin, which is kind of creepy. I'd rather use fabric. Yeah, so ultra suede is one of my favorites. I love it because you can throw it in the washing machine. It washes great. It wears great. It looks, I have some pieces that I've made myself out of ultra suede that I've had for maybe, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Wear them all the time. They do great. So it's a long wearing fabric that I love to use, and I can get it in so many different colors. Something else I'll typically use is a canvas fabric. So that I typically will call, it's a polyester or cotton fabric that has a more of a plain weave texture. So this particular example is a twill weave that's used in denim. So it's got a diagonal kind of pattern, and that just is how they lay down the threads. But most canvases, they'll either be either a plain weave, which is the threads are all perpendicular, or sometimes you'll see like a diagonal pattern that makes it a twill. And that, it's a very, very hard-wearing fabric. Most jeans, most, canvases behind paintings, it's a very, your tote bags that you take to the grocery store, those are typically canvas as well. It's common, it is long-wearing, long-lasting, and it doesn't have the shine and the texture and the pattern that a lot of these other examples do. So it's not, it's not necessarily soft, but it does lend a nice utilitarian feeling. So if you want something that's an everyday knock around, I'm just going to throw on some pockets and go do my life, that's a good example, or that's a good choice. But, I, of course, love the pretty, and I love the fuzzy, and I love the feeling. And so, there's a time and a place, I should say. So you can shop all of my pocket belt selections, my current selection of pocket belts in my Etsy store. You'll see a link in a minute. I would love it if you could subscribe to my channel. Please hit the subscribe button, because that really helps me out to know, who's watching, what you're up to, how you're seeing me. So I really appreciate the opportunity to share this with you, and hopefully I'll see you at an in-person event sometime soon. Cross fingers and toes. We'll see. Yeah, so thank you for watching.